Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Rox Burkey on today's show.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show. I'm Rox Burkey, and I'm here today with the amazing Deborah Olson. How are you?
Great, thank you.
And so you have created a fabulous book, and it's fabulous from several different perspectives. The healing power of girlfriends, right? I mean,
Yes,
who doesn't want to have girlfriends that they can share confidences with?
absolutely, 100%.
Now, from talking with you before and knowing you, this is not something that, should just be when you're 16 or just be when you're high schooling, right?
Right.
When is this important?
Throughout our lifespan, really.
Okay.
And the research has now documented that we live our healthiest, happiest, and now even our longest lives if we regularly have connection, contact with girlfriends.
Okay.
And so face-to-face, we get the biggest bang for our buck, of course, but texting, calling, FaceTiming, all those things are still important. And the studies are really saying that people in their 70s and 80s and 90s really benefit from having girlfriends because they're very often widows.
Oh, of course, that makes a big deal.
Right.
What about with COVID?
It's been a hard year.
Okay.
And our depression rates have tripled in women. It's been a really tough go. And one of the things that we all have really longed for is that connection, that face-to-face, being with our friends and family. And so it's been a tough year for that. I just had the pleasure last night of my first gathering with my group near my home. I live in the Kima area,
Right.
the road a little bit.
Right.
And we had our first real in-person meeting since COVID. There were about 12 of us there. I belong to a wine ladies group, and we have dinner, we have a glass of wine, we laugh. We also, when somebody's diagnosed with some type of cancer or they lose a loved one, we rally behind that person.
Sure.
And we are each other's support group. So it's a really important group of women. And we had our first meetup since COVID last night. It felt so good.
I bet it did. And you're right. You need to have that connection and that support group. So, sometimes families aren't enough, right? Or there aren't any family members.
Right. Not everybody has family. A lot of people come from small families in the first place, and then when people start passing away, they don't maybe have a lot of family, and so become family with our friends. I have some stories that I share in the book about that because my husband and I have moved around the country for his job.
Okay.
And we lived in Wisconsin for a number of years. We had our babies there. And I had no family in the state. All of our family was back in Nebraska where we grew up. So
Okay.
I had no grandmothers. I had no support system. My new girlfriends that I made, because we had just moved there, they became my family. And we actually spent Thanksgivings together. We spent Easters together.
There you go.
Because that was our family. So sometimes your family is who you're connected with in a tight way.
It's the extended family. So what was the inspiration, or what was the final, event that made you want to actually commit this to a book?
That's a great question. I get it all the time. And there were two events really that led to this book. The first one was we were on a beach, my husband and I, in Playa del Carmen. We would go every summer in Mexico. And we were with this other couple who from Milwaukee days. So their names are Harlan and Kathy. And Kathy's my BFF. And we were on the beach and we were talking about our kids, our lives. We were catching up. We're both now grandmothers. So it's really awesome. We share a lot. And her husband, Harlan, was looking at us from another beach chair, and he just started laughing. And he just goes, I have to just stop you guys a minute and comment that you're just going like this, 100 miles an hour, because we don't see each other that much. We live in different states now. So I see her maybe once every 2 years.
Wow.
And so, when we do meet up, we have a lot to talk about. And he was laughing about that. And we just said, yeah, we're catching up. And he said, I have to say one thing that I've observed with you too. Said, you have kept your friendship alive through the decades, because we moved to Texas in the early 90s.
Sure.
So I've not lived next to her since then. And he said, you guys have something really important and special, because you pick up where you left off. You have written letters to each other. You've stayed in contact with each other all through these years. And not many people know how to do that. That's a gift. That's an art. And so he said, if I were you, I would think about, he's talking to me now, he said, if I were you, I think I'd think about putting this in a book. Whatever kind of recipe formula that you have, other women out there want to know about that.
Well, sure.
And so of course we do, because some people don't have many friends for whatever reason. And so, yeah, having those long time friendships are such a delight, and they play such a role in our lives now. So that was the first thing. The second thing that happened a few months later is right here in Galveston, I do women's retreats,
Right.
and we were staying at the Sam Lily, and I had this lovely, wonderful group of women that had signed up for this retreat, and it was Sunday, and we were wrapping up, and we were having our last little talk, and as they left the room and came up to me to say goodbye and just say thanks so much, a lot of the ladies said to me, I learned so much, because it was about female friendship. That was
Sure.
the topic of the retreat. And they just said, can you think about putting this in a book? What you shared with us this weekend was life-changing. We
Oh,
heard stuff we hadn't heard before. Please think about putting this in a book, because other women will want to know about this. And so those two things together, I went home and I said, time to make an outline, time to get going.
and you have a background that kind of lends itself to that kind of structure, to doing those sorts of retreats. So just a little tiny bit about your background, because your education is a real help note for this.
Yes, so I was an RN first, and I worked in OB/GYN. I worked in labor and delivery and special care nursery, newborn nursery, all of that, and loved my time at the bedside with women. I really enjoyed it. And then I stayed home and had my own babies.
Yeah.
And when I went back, I said, I'm going to either go back into bedside nursing and OB, or is there something else I might be suited for or enjoy doing? And after thinking about it and doing some soul searching, I decided I really wanted to connect with women in an emotional way, because that emotional support is something we really need.
Yep.
And I just felt that going and getting a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree in clinical psychology that would give me the equipment I needed, the tools to really be able to be with women and support them and, help them walk through life. There's so many challenges that women go through, right? And so I really wanted to offer that. And so I have a private practice in Houston, in the Galleria area, and I treat women primarily. I do a little bit of marriage counseling, but the major focus of my practice is women's emotional health.
Okay, so women's emotional health, so they can come to you if they're up or down, or, short, long. I mean, it's not like it has to be a long-term.
Right. And sometimes it's just they need some coaching sort of
Right.
through a life transition. I have women that have come in, they're newly divorced.
Yeah.
They need some help. That's a tough time for women. They are a new empty nester. They don't know what their definition is anymore, because their main role has been mommy, and now that's done. And so that's a big one. I have women who moved in from out of state. They don't know how to make new friends. And so we talk about that. There's all different challenges as women go through the lifespan.
Right.
There are so many different challenges with each chapter we go through.
Sure. And so part of what you are doing in this book is you're actually helping open up tool sets for women to be able to use to kind of move forward with some of those interesting. So I know you have some interesting tool sets in there. But before we get to that, because we'll get to that in the next segment, are we doing another book?
I am going to do another book. I'm trying to decide right now. I have several ideas, different topics,
Right.
different areas to go into for the next book. And so I have an editor that I love very much, Candace Johnson. She's my editor for this book. She and I have become dear friends. We've never met. She lives in Portland.
Oh,
But she's my best friend now. We're very, very close. We do lots of talks, and she's encouraged me to get another book going, and we talk about different topics. So
that's very exciting. And it's a great place for us to pause to hear from our sponsors. And then I really want you to take a spot out at book to share, okay?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Marianne Fairmouth is a career consultant with 30 years experience in the national recruiting world, a multi-award winning author in multi-genres, and a speaker that gives presentations to help you succeed. Her book, Revolutionary Recruiting, made the top 20 global list of recruiting books. Find her on Amazon, your favorite bookstore, or at fairmouth.com.
Factor 7, the newest thriller by author J.D. May, will keep you turning the pages with mystery, betrayal, lies, and infidelity. Ripped from the headlines, Factor 7 follows two prominent doctors who uncover a clandestine plot to spread a bioweapon with a 98% mortality rate. Journey with them as they experience a world of murder, power, intrigue, and corruption, where it becomes deadly clear that exposing the truth is just as dangerous as the weapon they seek to expose.
Hello, I am the author Denise Bryson. My first book is The Things That Cross My Mind, Inspirational Poetry with Life Lessons. And then my audiobook is Love's Reality, and it is also inspirational poetry with a jazzy flair. And then my new book is The Sex, the Lies, and the Soul Ties. They're really short stories written from a poetic expression. And then I have my first children book series, the Blinky series, which the first book is called Meet the Coins, and it is both in English and Spanish. And then the new book, From Coins to Bills. I am the author, Denise Bryson.
To embrace your children's imagination, check out Diane Floyd Bame's books for kids. There's The Moonling Adventures, all about the animals in the Serengeti. And then there's Harry the Camel, learning to love yourself just the way you are. Then The Little Girl in the Moon. There's one about friendship, another one about the big ideas, which is an inspirational story, and then Tour Tycho Town, right there in Tycho Crater on the moon. All of Diane Floyd Bame's books are available at B4R Store.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Rox Burkey on today's show.
Welcome back to the Indie Beacon Show. I'm Rox Burkey, and I'm here this afternoon with Deborah Olson, and we're talking about the healing power of girlfriends, because girlfriends are very important. They have a different level than even guys. It's not the guy thing. So when we left, I wanted you to kind of share one of the important portions of your book, if you don't mind.
I would love to. So I have real life stories in here of things that I've noticed about my own female friendships, things that I've gleaned from them, and what they have done to play a part in my life story, my life journey. I've noticed that there have been a lot of curveballs that I have had to endure with life. We all have curveballs that come through. And it's been my girlfriends that have kept me afloat. So I share those real life stories. One of the stories in here is about my neighbor girlfriends on my street who helped after Hurricane Harvey.
Okay.
And as you know, a lot of people lost their homes in Hurricane Harvey. My daughter and her husband were one of those. They live in the Memorial area. They were newlyweds. They had just purchased their brand new house.
Oh,
and
no.
they lived in it for a month. And here comes Harvey. And they were in that group of homes that had kitchen counter, top level water for treatment. So we had to go in there and clear everything out and wash everything we could salvage. There's a lot of things that were tossed, but the few things we could salvage, we had to wash all that. My neighbors on my street stepped up to the plate and said to them, they called me and said, we heard your daughter lost her home. We know there's something that we can help do.
Wow.
What can we do? They never met my daughter.
Right.
So that story is in the book. And I talk about how on a Saturday, they, my neighbors, and my husband and I went over and we helped wash all those dishes, bubble wrap, and get it ready to put into a storage unit while their house was being completely gutted. And it's those kind of real life stories that are in the book. I talk about another story of the girlfriend I refer to as my angel. Her name is Alicia.
Yeah.
And she's just a dear, dear soul. And I talk about our connection. We're both mothers of four. And so the book is full of stories about real friendships, my friendships, that highlight different parts that girlfriends play at different times in our lives. And we all have our own stories. Everybody has their own book inside of them of what they could pour out. These things have happened to me. And who've been the key players that came in through Eagle Life Fest.
Sure.
And so those are in the book in a real life way. People love that.
Do you want to read a small portion just to
Yes,
give
I
folks
can.
a flavor of your
I
of your
can.
style?
I can. I would love to. So let me talk about.
Just a short one.
Yeah, this is a story about my friend Lisa. Let's see here, right here, Lisa. So Lisa is a dear friend of mine who touched my soul in ways I will never forget during Hurricane Harvey in August 2017. I was in Mexico with friends when all flights home to Houston were canceled. At the same time, my husband was working 24/7 with all the first responders to provide emergency medical care. This left my 2 senior cats, who were in very delicate health, to ride out the storm alone in our house. So I called Lisa, who was my neighbor, who offered to feed and care for them. She found my one cat, Chloe, beautiful calico cat, very lethargic and sickly. Lisa provided TLC and sent me a precious video she took of Chloe. Sadly, Chloe crossed the Rainbow Bridge a few days later before I arrived home. Although this left me with a giant hole in my heart, my dear friend Lisa had given both Chloe and me indescribable gifts. Yes, there are angels among us, and they are called girlfriends.
See, that's very important because it's some of the small things. I mean, a very small thing to come and help somebody, take care of a pet, take care of a child, take care of a parent, whatever that might be. It's not necessarily something that your guy friends will do. It's more of a girlfriend thing. Guys will help, but it's different.
It's different. I think women are nurturers. It's the way that we've been created, the way we're wired, and we just reach out very readily. And that story about Lisa, she was one of the friends who helped wash the dishes for my daughter's destroyed home. So she was one of those sweet neighbors. So she helped twice in that aftermath of Harvey. And you're right, it's women that really sometimes feel the inclination to reach out first. It's just in our nature.
And empathy. It probably runs a little deeper in many women. Conversely, you can also have the other side of the coin. But this is very, very good. So, how has Lisa reacted to having her story in your book?
Lisa was very honored, and unfortunately, Lisa moved away a couple years ago. She no longer lives down the street from me. She now lives in Florida, but what a sweetheart she is. And I actually did a book event in the Tampa St. Pete's area where she lives.
Oh, nice.
And so she came with a whole bunch of her girlfriends to my book event. And she walked in, and I was in the middle of my presentation. I was talking about my book, and we were about 100 ladies at this event. And she walked over to me, and we just cried and hugged.
Oh.
And then I read that part of the book, so it was a very special moment.
That's awesome.
She's very honored to have the Chloe story out there.
All right. So, what do you hope to do with this book for the next little bit until your next book comes out?
Now that we're getting back into face-to-face things,
Right.
and we're all kind of getting back into restaurants and shops and back connected with everybody, I'm hoping to go back out there and do another book tour. So in 2019, I was very blessed. I was from California to Florida to Mexico,
Right.
all over with my book tour. And what's the cool thing about that? Of course, I sell a lot of books that way, but the really neat part of that is I get to engage in women that are wonderful women that come up and tell me their stories. And they'll tell me what touched them when they read my book and how it impacted their soul. And that's I love to get out there with other women and really connect. So I want to get back out there now that COVID's wrapping up, we think, and get back with women and get some book events on the calendar.
So, people that reach out to you and have read your book, so they become fans, but they also become your friends,
Yes.
right? So it's not a one-dimensional touch. We're talking a bi-directional part of your extended family.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I actually, because I'm on all the social medias and have a Facebook page for my author and my book and everything, I'm able to connect with my people now, my new peeps.
Right.
And so I consider it such an honor because I'll hear from people. There's one ladies club up in Omaha, Nebraska, a neighborhood group that read my book in their book club, and they started emailing me and started engaging me with what really touched them. And
Right.
there's discussion questions at the end of every chapter.
Right.
So they were going through those, and they got into some nitty gritty, and they said, our normal time to meet is an hour and a half, but because we were into the nitty gritty of your questions, it was a 3.5-hour meeting.
I kind of hope you had the wine that you spoke about earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is a perfect place for us to take another pause, hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, I really want you to share how people can find you. Thanks.
Publishing marketing package for authors. A $1,500 value, save 40% now. Includes a 6-piece marketing kit of 250 bookmarks, 250 business cards, 250 postcards, 1 table banner, 1 table runner, and 50 download cards, plus book cover design, ebook creation, PDF setups, upload jingle, spark, scroll placement, video commercial, and interview on IBS. Plus much more. Email bourgeoismedia@look.com for details or bourgeoismedia.com.
Hi, I'm Mel Greenberg, author of Running with Our Eyes Closed, book 1 in the Empty Nested series. To the world, Samantha has the perfect life. 3 wonderful children, a loving husband, so she thought, and a life split between Dallas and Italy. When her youngest leaves for college, it all comes crashing down, forcing Samantha to re-examine everything. Over 7 days in one of the most romantic countries in the world, Samantha faces the past she thought she'd overcome and begins to redefine her role as a woman, a wife, and a mother.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to care for a loved one? Well, during COVID, almost all of us have been doing just that. I'm Charlotte Canyon, award-winning author, actress, and speaker. And my book, You Have to Laugh to Keep from Crying, shows you how you can revive, thrive, and survive with 4 golden rules. You have to love one another. You have to respect one another. You have to have patience with one another. And most of all, you've got to forgive one another. I'm Charlotte Canyon, and I approve this message.
Welcome to the Indie Beacon Show, where readers can discover great new indie authors. Find us on all major podcast systems and YouTube. Join Rox Burkey on today's show.
So welcome back to the Indie Beacon Show, and I am here with Deborah Olson, and we're talking about her magnificent book, and it really is magnificent because it's the healing power of girlfriends, and it's girlfriends that you can find at any age, right? You can find them in high school, and they'll help you, get through college, but actually the more mature they are, probably the better it is, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So how can people find you? Let's say they don't have your book. Let's start there. How can people find you?
So you can find me several different ways. So my book is for sale at Amazon.com. It is for sale Target.com and BarnesandNoble.com. It's also linked to my websites. I have 2 websites. I have one website for my counseling, but you can also get to my book on there, and that's GalleriaCounseling.com. Very easy.
Yep.
And I have a second website that is more about my book and my speaking career. And that one is Deborah, my name, DEBORAH, the long spelling, hyphen,
Yep.
and then my last name, Olson, OLSON.com.
So that's very easy to find as well. And you are located really in the Houston Galleria area, essentially. So, in the heart of Texas. So people can talk to you and counsel with you. And you have emails on both of those sites, as I recall. And so what are those emails? Kind of help people out here.
So just dolson.com is one, and then the other one it's actually connected with my Galleria website. So you could just
Connect
on there, connect with that one.
Yeah, perfect. Now there are some downloads off of both your websites too.
Yes,
As I
there's a lot of
recall.
downloads. So I've done a lot of podcasts now and some radio shows with a lovely lady in Arizona, Carol Blonder. And so all of the files for all of that is all on my Galleria website and on my Deborah Olson website. So if you're just wanting to maybe listen to something for 20 minutes and kind of get a pick me up for that day, kind of get charged, you can click on any of the topics or any of the files that are there, and there's quite a few. So, and I've done a little TV now as well. I've been blessed to be on a show here in Houston with Deborah Duncan.
Nice.
Good Morning Houston. And then my wine friends and I were on a segment for Dr. Phil in December because we were an example of making new friends at any age or stage.
Yep.
And so we were on there as a big group. Of course it's COVID, so we're in the Jeopardy boxes.
Sure, of course. Yeah, Zoom for all of us,
Yeah,
right? We've
right.
all learned Zoom. So, I think it's very exciting because you do have the speaking engagement. You are going to get out and about. So I would recommend to all of the listeners of this, go to Deborah's website. Get her book too, but go to her website, find out where she's going to be, when she's going to be there, and make a new friend.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Thank you
Great
so
advice.
much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching or listening to the Indie Beacon Show, produced by Beyond Bourgeois for the Authors Marketing International LLC. Copyright 2021. Voiceover by Beyond Bourgeois. If you would like to be a sponsor of the show, please email us at authorsmarketing@outlook.com. If you would like to be on the show, please complete the form found on our website at indiebeacon.com. You may also watch previous year's shows on the website. Music is Frolic of Words, created for Indie Beacon